Initially, the sponsor, do you want to comment on this before I go to the administration?
Yes, so actually, Chairman, I think we need to make an amendment. There was one group that was not added into the numbers, which is the Shelby County Fire Department. And so I'd like to make an amendment to this item to add the Shelby County Fire into it and to change the numbers in the resolution. So I move that we add Shelby County Fire and to change the total amount to be allocated, $1.245 million. That would be inclusive of including all of them.
There's a motion to amend by Commissioner Jones. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Mills. Can we now have discussion on that? And also be sure everybody's crystal clear on what Commissioner Jones's intent is. Does the administration have any questions, or any commissioners have any questions? And because we don't have a queue in, if you either raise your hand or text me, I'll try to pay attention to my phone today. Anybody have any questions about Commissioner Jones's amended item number 3? And also there was no objection, correct? Very good. I hear no objection. Mr. Crosby, any questions? Do you have any? Okay. Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. Could someone just briefly explain what the source of this funding is and how it's intended to be used?
All right, this is from the COVID money. This is for our frontline first responders that are out there in the midst of the pandemic. This is for hazardous pay, with each receiving $500. There's a total of 2,490 employees that will be receiving this. That would bring it to the total of $1.245 million. And this will be issued to them at the first pay period as a stipend, because this money can't touch pensionable money. So it'll be given as a stipend the first pay period in December.
And is it federal or state?
Federal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Really good question, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this will be a one-time $500 stipend. Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Really good question, Commissioner Brooks. Any other comments on this item before we go to a vote? Very good. Let's prepare to vote on item number 3 as amended.
Commissioner Turner,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Sawyer,
Aye.
Whaley,
Aye.
Wright,
Aye.
Milton,
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Bradford, Ford,
Yes.
Mills,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Chairman Billingsley.
Aye.
We have aye votes from Commissioners Turner, Morrison, Sawyer, Whaley, Wright, Milton, Brooks, Ford, Mills, Lowry, Jones, and Chairman Billingsley. We have 12 aye votes.
Item number 3 passes. What was the total vote count? 12 to, very good. Thank you. Please read item number 4.
Item 4 comes from the Budget and Finance Committee, which is chaired by Commissioner Jones. Item 4 is a resolution amending the fiscal year FY 2020 operating budget in order to allocate coronavirus aid relief and Economic Security CARES Act funds into a grant fund entitled Shelby County CARES Act Relief Fund and the appropriation of federal CARES Act funds in an amount not to exceed $43,378,185.30 for use by certain departments in county government and various municipalities within Shelby County in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This item requires the transfer, appropriation, and expenditure of FY 2020 government entity relief funding in an amount not to exceed $43,378,185.30. Combined with previous resolutions, this brings total approved CARES Act funding to $49,921,022.30. Sponsored by Chairman Mark Billingsley and Chairman Pro Tempore Eddie S. Jones Jr., this item is an add-on for consideration in May 27, 2020 special called commission meeting.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Rankin. Is there any objection to the chairman and vice chairman adding this item on today? Seeing no objection, we add it to our agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder on item number 4?
Moved.
Moved by Commissioner Morrison,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Mills. Thank you. Let me now go to the administration on item number 4.
Good morning, Chairman, and to the Board of Commissioners and the elected officials, and to our illustrious Mayor Lee Harris. I am Dr. Lasagna Harris Hall, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for Shelby County Government. The resolution before you today seeks to amend the FY20 operating budget in order to allocate coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security, as known as the CARES Act funds, into a grant fund entitled Shelby County CARES Act Relief Fund in an amount not to exceed $43,378,185.30 for use by county departments and municipalities within Shelby County in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. All of us will admit that we are living in unprecedented times. Never in our lifetimes have we witnessed a phenomenon that has literally halted our entire way of conducting business, altered the way in which we live, work, and play, and quite honestly impacted our emotional and social well-being to its core. The novel coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic has affected families and households around the world. Under the Federal CARES Act passed on March 27th, funding in the amount of $49,921,022.30 was awarded to Shelby County to cover unbudgeted expenditures incurred between March 1 and December 30th of 2020. This administration is grateful to have a solid foundation of support from the Board of Commissioners in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. Not on one, but on 3 separate occasions, this body noted the critical need for resources and decisively allocated and appropriated emergency funding in the amount of $2,4,091,844 on April 15th, $95,710 on May 4th, and $6,447,127 on May 18th. These actions have provided the necessary safeguards to protect the residents and employees of Shelby County. We now solicit your consideration, approval, and partnership to make the best decisions regarding the appropriation of the balance of the CARES Act funding. Commissioners, it is our mission to make our community whole. On November 24, 2019, Mayor Harris and the leadership of Shelby County, as well as the 7 municipalities, gathered to celebrate the 200th birthday of Shelby County. It was a day of reflection, but also a day of prospection and unity. 6 months later, almost to the day, Shelby County must rely on that same unified front to get us through. With your support, this administration will ensure that our collective commitment to restoring our municipalities is fulfilled. As such, $6,056,000 will be designated for the Shelby County Municipal Relief Fund to cover COVID-related expenses incurred by the cities of Arlington, Bartlett, Collierville, Germantown, Lakeland, and Millington. The next category of expense includes funding for divisions managing the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic. $2,638,119 of the CARES Act fund will be designated for Shelby County's Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency. This funding will provide the additional resources needed to coordinate and track federal and state relief programs. It will also be used to further secure personal protective equipment and shore up sanitization protocols throughout Shelby County. On May 18th, this body approved funding in the amount of $6,447,127 to expand service delivery of the Shelby County Health Department in the wake of the pandemic. The administration is grateful for your support. Working nonstop daily since this began, our health department, under the tireless leadership of Dr. Alyssa Haushalter and her team, continue to ramp up our testing strategies, including education and other critical tools for communication with the public, as well as onboarding emergency personnel directly involved with testing, contact tracing, and risk management. An additional $1,065,629 will be designated for this purpose. The coronavirus has hit all of us hard, but for the most vulnerable populations, the loss of income has been devastating. To this end, $6,811,246 is designated for the Division of Community Services to strengthen a social safety net for the everyday folk hardest hit and likely the most impacted by the coronavirus. Funding will be used to mitigate housing insecurities, provide a cushion on which to fall, and prevent the further economic disruption to families and businesses in our community. Funding also will be used to ramp up technology access in our justice system. The need in our community is far greater than any of us could have imagined. The administration recognizes this and heard the resounding concern from commissioners last week regarding the various needs facing our small businesses, mom and pop shops, and community agencies. $8 million has been designated for the Shelby County Government Commission Consensus Group. This group of 7 people will evaluate the additional needs and potential uses of the CARES Act funding. On April 15th, the Commission approved an emergency expenditure of $2,491,844. The CARES Act fund will be used to reimburse the general fund by this amount, as well as a total of $4,393,572.30 in qualified COVID-19 related expenses that have already been expended. We are grateful for the ongoing partnership and collaboration with not only the division directors, but all of the elected officials who provided input on calculating this figure. A fall contingency reserve fund in the amount of $9,984,776 will be set aside as the administration recognizes the importance of bracing ourselves for a possible resurgence later this year. Finally, in alignment with Commissioner Jones's vision, $1,137,000 will be designated for hazard pay for the countless Shelby County employees who have sacrificed their own personal health and that of their families to provide dedicated care and commitment to ensure the operation of our county. Unprecedented times call for unprecedented collaboration. We humbly submit this proposal and stand prepared to offer clarification and answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Dr. Hall, really good presentation. Before I go to the commissioners for questions, Mr. Mayor, you want to say anything on item number 4?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just to start, I want to make sure I give a tip of the hat to Commissioner Jones for recognizing the incredible need that's being borne by a lot of Shelby County employees who have been exposed to extraordinary risk of contracting coronavirus just in their day-to-day work, and trying to figure out a way to compensate them for the extraordinary risk that they bear. These are really humble people. We reached out to several of the divisions to get their feedback, and they were grateful to receive the support. But we resoundingly heard from them also that they would go about their duties of serving the public no matter what. And so that kind of devotion to Shelby County, I just want to flag and really just tip my hat to Commissioner Jones for recognizing the service that these residents give us every single day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Commissioners, do we have any questions on item number 4? Commissioner Sawyer, good morning. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation, Deputy Chief and Mayor Harris. Really quickly, is there an attachment to this amendment that outlines just the quick details in this? Do we have a printout or it's electronically? It's electronic, okay. All right, I'm gonna look at that and then I don't know if there are other questions.
You want us to see if we can print that out, Commissioner?
No, I'll pull it up really quickly.
Okay.
But I just wanted to, so this presentation meets the resolution that we passed asking for the details, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, shit, sorry. That's what I wanted to know. I don't have, okay, I'm looking at it. If you don't mind giving me just a second, Chairman.
While you're reviewing that, I'm going to go to Commissioner Whaley. Be happy to come right back to you. Commissioner Michael Whaley.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mayor and Dr. Hall, for presenting this. Just a couple quick questions. One is, if there's anything in here around mental health, particularly for those that are incarcerated. I think, mental health is certainly something more broadly that I think is becoming an issue during the pandemic, and just curious if you can highlight any allocations that address mental health. And then the other question is around education, and if there's an opportunity potentially or a vision to possibly support our school systems in adapting for this coming school year to supplement what they're getting directly, if the vision is to do that through the commission grants, or if there is somewhere else within the allocation where we might be able to support either the technology needs or the additional sanitation needs. Or I think a lot of organizations are installing these like plexiglass dividers, whatever it may be. Like, is there a way to supplement or support some of the asks that our school systems have with regard to COVID-19?
Go ahead. Mr. Mayor.
So not as such. The school system, of course, received a significant allocation, and to the extent they provide a proposal of how they want to utilize the resources, I think we're all happy to consider it. The Grants and New Programs Committee will have complete discretion to make judgments around proposals as those proposals are received. So I'm sure there's a way to work in a lot of the items you just talked about. On the mental health component, so we took a look way back when and talked to our consultants about mental health, and our understanding of this is that we could provide mental health services by phone, telehealth services by phone to Shelby County employees in order to meet that need given the particular moment that we're in. Now, whether or not our mental health services are available under our contract with WellPath for our inmates and detainees, that's something I'll have to investigate. But I'm sure there's a way to get there as well. For example, we are working with WellPath right now to try to figure out a way to include COVID testing as part of that arrangement. Of course, that contract does not include currently outbreak testing. It's not something that was discussed before, but we're working with them on how to make sure you include outbreak testing in the contract going forward. So in addition to that, we could work with them on mental health, making sure that inmates and detainees have availability on with respect to mental health too. Yeah, thanks.
Commissioner Whaley, really good question. Let's go back to Commissioner Sawyer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Whaley. All right, Mayor, I have a few questions for you on the breakout. Are we allowed to give input on this? Are you receiving amendments and recommendations?
I think that's a question for your attorney.
Chairman Billingsley.
Ms. Smith, go right ahead.
Presently, any amendment here would be a request to the chief executive. The act requires appropriations be made by the chief executive.
Okay, so I have a few requests. To Chairman Whaley's point, one of the numbers that's not included in COVID deaths is the rise in suicides since the beginning of March. We also have had a uptick in overdoses in Shelby County. I think, as I've shared before, I sit on the State of Tennessee's Health Equity Council, and it came up just last week that Shelby County has had the highest rise in opioid overdoses resulting in deaths, not overdoses that were recovered. And the majority of the people who overdosed were Black women. And so the digital divide is not reaching. So when you talk about telehealth and things like that, one of the things that we're also witnessing in education is the number of people who cannot connect or don't have experiencing with connecting virtually. And so that keeps them from being able to actually get the services that they've been used to. Also the camaraderie that comes with recovery services in person. So one recommendation I would like to make is that we look into countywide some type of either marketing or programming or support for Shelby County as far as drug use is related, opioid addiction and overdoses, and that mental health and suicide, even if it's as simple as saying, reminder, these are the hotlines you can call. But we do have an issue on our hand, and the rates are higher than they are anywhere else in Tennessee. Secondly, I'm glad to see support for diapers and period supplies, of course. And under social workers and bilingual translator, I would just ask again that instead of bilingual, we ensure that we're reaching at least the top 5 languages spoken in Shelby County. And so that would be a change there. Domestic violence support, $300,000. Domestic violence is on the rise as well. You know, those numbers can also be contributed to forced quarantine in homes that are already in crisis. So I would recommend increasing that number. I would also like to recommend somewhere, if possible, support for Shelby County Schools program to get Wi-Fi access to all students, as we've voted an amendment to the budget to begin exploring how to have countywide Wi-Fi. As I just mentioned, the digital divide is really impacting how our youth are able to connect to schools. There's a lot of kids whose school year ended on March 15th. Okay, and so if we cannot go into the summer in the next school year, if we can go into the summer in the next school year, limiting that digital divide any way that we can support. And one other recommendation that I have is that last week we passed a resolution which included the Healthy Shelby Business Initiative. I've not had a chance to talk to the administration. I do plan to follow up, but if we could get if we agree to go forward with that, if that could be included in this funding. My final question, Chairman, thank you for the time, is under the Shelby County Municipal Relief, does that include Memphis, or is Memphis the $2.7 million?
So Memphis is not included in the municipal relief because Memphis received its own Federal CARES Act amount.
And this $6 million is equal, is divided beyond, amongst each of the
Yes, ma'am.
municipalities equally?
It's on Exhibit C. There is a breakout of the
Gotcha.
municipal spend, and we've worked and alerted each of the municipalities. So with the passage of this item today, we can begin the actual work of working directly with the municipalities to get their reimbursement amounts.
And will we know what they spend the money on, or there's no strings attached?
No, we will require a budget and work with them in accordance with the legislation. So the expenditures, because we will have to be accountable in terms of what the money is spent on, so we will work directly with the municipalities in identifying what those allowable expenditures are.
Thank you. And so just my final question, I'm sorry. This is really important to me, Chairman. I apologize for the abuse of the time clock here. I also do not see, I don't see marketing. Are we going to be doing any outreach work? And is that going to be included in this budget?
So the commission did approve an amount for marketing in a previous agenda item, and so that marketing effort is underway through the health department. So there was funding set aside by this body for the specific purpose of marketing.
And that's enough? That's why I'm asking, is it enough?
Well, we will use that. We will assess whether or not we need additional funding, and we can always report back if there's an adjustment that's needed within the budget.
Thank you. And Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So if you'll take those recommendations,
Absolutely.
and hopefully we can speak about this again.
Absolutely.
And Mayor Harris, I'll reach out about the Healthy Shelby Business Initiative that was passed by the commission. And Chairman, I'd be remiss if I didn't lift up the name of George Floyd when I have my first opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Chairman Billingsley, I'm sorry. Can I just reiterate? I'm sorry.
Dr. Lasagna Hall.
I'm sorry, Dr. Hall. One other clarification for Commissioner Sawyer's question is that Mayor Harris has set aside $8 million of this funding so that the commission, through a consensus group, can identify additional needs and uses for this funding. So that should help the commission identify additional needs and areas where we can use CARES Act funding for that purpose.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. Mr. Mayor.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate those comments. They're well received. And just let me flag that we will be constantly coming back to this commission to talk about these expenditures and how it's going. Everyone who is in leadership in Shelby County government is prepared to talk about in detail about each one of these lines as we go through the rest of the year. So anytime you want to have a presentation on these, we're going to be in the business of doing that anyway, but anytime you want to hear more information about any one of these particular lines, we're happy to provide that. One other thing, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to take too much time, but I do have to shout out City of Memphis because Commissioner Sawyer pointed out the 2.7 that is also reflected on Exhibit A. That debit of 2.7 reflects the fact that the City of Memphis has come in to support our health department to the tune of $2.7 million. So they voted to support us, and that brought down how much we will have to outlay to expand our health department. Thank you.
Dr. Hall and Mr. Mayor, thank you. Commissioner Sawyer, I think you bring up a lot of really, really good points. Commissioners, as we all know, we speak as a body. So, Commissioner Sawyer, if you wanted to make a motion to make those a recommendation, we speak as a body, and if you want to do that, it might be a little stronger if there's the will of the body to vote for that.
Now I have to remember what I asked. You got to listen.
I do.
Well, I think we detailed,
Okay.
I think we all detailed, at least I've got great details on everything you talked about, from addressing suicides, overdoses, the top 5 languages, the additional domestic violence support, consideration of the Healthy Shelby Business Initiative, extra focus on opioid overdoses, increased diligence on African American women who are overdosing. Again, it would just be a recommendation to the mayor, but again, I think we speak as a body, and I think all your points are very well taken.
And the possibility of supporting the Wi-Fi initiative for the schools, and not just Shelby County schools. Can we make it all students in Shelby County, please? I would make that a recommendation, Chairman, or a motion.
I'll make a second on that.
Thank you.
I'll make the second. Commissioners, is there any other discussion on Commissioner Sawyer's? Commissioner Willie Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my understanding that funding has been allocated for Wi-Fi for Shelby County schools.
I thought it was just for laptops. I was speaking to hotspots or Wi-Fi access, but I'm not sure if anyone from SES or Whaley.
Commissioner Sawyer, I'm actually on that committee for Shelby County Schools, and that is part of the entire initiative. it's going to be a heck of a heavy lift, but the SCS and specific committees working on that.
Happy to.
Can we accept Commissioner Sawyer's motion that was properly seconded without objection?
Sure.
Okay. And then we go to discussion. Is there any objection on putting that motion on the floor? Okay, very good. We're still on discussion of Commissioner Sawyer's motion. I've got people in the queue for the rest of the, but on this, is this on Commissioner Sawyer's point? Okay, I've got a list of commissioners on the overall, on item number 4, but any other discussion on Commissioner Sawyer's, which is just a recommendation to the mayor, but anybody else have anything on Commissioner Sawyer's suggestions? Okay, can we accept Commissioner Sawyer's amendment without objection? Seeing no objection, we accept Commissioner Sawyer's recommendation for the mayor's consideration. Now we go back to item number 4. Commissioner Sawyer has spoken, Commissioner Whaley has spoken. Next in the queue is Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here's my question, because I've gotten some phone calls from out in the municipals. And so if I heard you correct, all of theirs, they have to spend their money first and then we reimburse them? Is that, because I heard you say reimbursement. So Dr. Hall, is that what we're doing with the municipals?
Dr. Hall.
Yes, Commissioner Jones. So just as Shelby County had to expend funds, we've already started expending funds countywide. The expectation is that the municipalities also have expended funds, and they can now seek reimbursement for those expenditures.
Okay. So are we only giving them this funding specifically for things that they've already spent the money on?
And anticipated funds that they have spent between now and, I think in the resolution it speaks to a deadline of September 1. But we are more than willing to work with the municipalities in ensuring that their needs as it relates to the COVID pandemic are met. But we've tried to set aside a $6 million amount to ensure that those needs will be covered based on their populations.
All right, and I guess their concerns were, so they could put together a plan to show you how they're going to spend the money. Not sure if they have that funding available in their budgets. And their concern was, basically, this is how it was said to me. The money was sent to Shelby County. Mm-hmm. You guys are not doing that to be reimbursed on what we're doing. And they're part of the county, and their concern was, why do they have to do that as well? Okay. Can they just present you with a plan to say that, and then hold them accountable that way? Because some of them say simply they are struggling to get along as well.
Mateo Crosby, Director of Administration and Finance. If I may address that question, we had set this up as reimbursement funding because the county is on the hook for the accounting of all of these funds. And if they are not spent in accordance with the law, then we have to return these funds to the U.S. Treasury. So we had set this up on a reimbursement basis. Thank you.
Right, I get that, but back to their point, if we are able to do it, then why are we forcing them? They simply just want to present a plan to show you what that is and what they've done.
Commissioner Jones, Mayor Harris would like to respond. Mayor Harris.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that points are well received, and we're in constant communication with the municipalities. So I have a meeting with the mayors of the various municipalities tomorrow. Attorney Iverson is in constant communication with the lawyers for the various municipalities. I'm confident we will be able to work out a solution with them to accommodate what you were talking about. Thanks.
Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Crosby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While we're on that, just going to ask one question. Dr. Hall, we've gotten some feedback, and again, I know the mayor can resolve this with the municipal mayors, but we have received some concern about, you're going to base this on census, which is absolutely fair, but there seems to be some discrepancy in some municipalities' census numbers. Is the administration going to be fluid to work with each municipality to be sure that the census numbers we have are accurate?
Yes, sir. We will work closely with the municipalities to ensure that that is addressed. We've actually had some discussions with one of the municipalities to that regard, and I think we've been able to address it accordingly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. We're going to, I'm writing down commissioners' names that are in the queue. Thank you, Vice Chairman Jones. Commissioner Brandon Morrison.
Thank you, Chairman. And I think Dr. Hall addressed my question. So the deadline of September 1st, is that across the board for all of these requests to be
Yes,
finalized
ma'am.
and spent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the second question would be a request to consider potential funding for training for the Election Commission as it relates to the preparing for the election in light of social distancing, and any other elected officials that would have needs such as related to training. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morrison. Again, really good points. I've been asked by many people how the elections are going to go. I know Commissioner Turner's asked lots of questions, and they're really very practical questions about how we vote safely. So thank you, Commissioner Morrison. Next in the queue is Commissioner Amber Mills.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Hall, for your presentation. My questions have been hit on, but I do want to hit on Commissioner Sawyer's. The $75,000 that we funded for marketing, will we get reimbursed for that through the CARES Act?
Yes.
Yes. And my other questions revolve around the municipalities. I would like to see this money given to them up front instead of arguing over receipts. I'll give the example, Millington, 44% of their revenue is sales tax, and everything's been shut down. And it's $355,000 to Millington. So I would recommend, since we're not doing amendments, recommend that the municipalities receive their money up front. And if they don't spend it correctly, then they're on the hook for it, if we could put that in. And I think they're responsible enough to make sure it is spent appropriately through the guidelines of the CARES Act. And my other question is, with the predicted second wave coming, should we extend the deadline at least 30 more days, or instead of September 1st, because it's still kind of summer then here. So my other recommendation would be extend the deadlines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mills, thank you very much. Commissioner Van Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to join in with Commissioner Sawyer, and I want to thank you, Chairman, for raising up the name of Mr. George Floyd. That's all on the media, and that's all you're seeing now. We want to pray for the city as well. We know that there were protests yesterday, and those will probably continue. So thanks for that. I also want to back up what Commissioner Morrison stated. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, the Election Commission and how we're going to handle voting for August and November has been something we've been trying to deal with. And so setting aside funds for voting, which will happen in 2 or 3 months, I think is going to be important. There's an issue now with absentee ballot voting, Mr. Chair, and I know that's in litigation now. And so I don't know what's going to happen. It's in the courts. And then eventually we're going to have to vote on the equipment. And so if we do change to new equipment, Mr. Mayor, how are we going to get the word out for using that new equipment in August and November, in addition to how we're going to socially distance, and all of this is taking place in a matter of, as I stated, as we all know, in a couple of months. So that's really important. We certainly don't want to disenfranchise voters. We want to make sure that voters are able to get to the polls in August and November. So since we're not making amendments, do we need to set aside funding for that, or is that already included?
Mayor Harris.
I think it's a great idea, and as I said, we'll be in constant communication around how to respond to COVID for the rest of the year. And so I think this and other items that have been raised are going to be items that we'll be bringing back to you all about how we're addressing. So I'm taking copious notes, and I think we will be prepared to address these items. I would also say, just on the specific idea of public awareness campaign around the new technology and how to vote safely, that is also a ripe kind of proposal for the consensus committee to talk about how do we get the word out, because this commission is more uniquely positioned to communicate to the public, in my view, than the election commission. And so to the extent this commission has great ideas about how to communicate to the public about how to vote and where to vote and how to do it safely, I think that's a really right proposal for the consensus committee. And if I'm on that committee, as you know, we propose that I be just to kind of administer but not to vote, then we'll make sure that that's one of the early proposals that the consensus committee hears.
Thank you.
Commissioner Turner, I'm just curious, do you have any idea when early voting starts?
Well, if the election is in early August, early voting will start in mid-July.
So we're really...
July 17th.
July 17th. So we are extremely close. We are extremely close.
Correct. The absentee ballots are already out. If you recall, Administrator Phillips said the absentee ballots were out on May 8th.
Wow.
So people are already voting, essentially. If absentee ballots are out, people are voting now by absentee.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I would like to see a robust media campaign to give the community direction. And maybe there's some PSAs, commercials, TV, radio, but we don't need to just leave it up in the air, and people need to know that they can vote safely and how do they go about doing it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think paid advertising right now is well in order, because while we think of Tennessee's absentee voting rules as limited, the reality is in Tennessee, our seniors can vote absentee in general. Right. And so that's our most vulnerable population, and very few in our community know that seniors, anyone over 60, can request an absentee ballot and vote from home. And so that's a unique opportunity to educate our seniors who may be skeptical of confronting the risk of COVID and getting out to vote. For us to communicate to them, you don't have to get out to vote if you're 60 or older. You can request an absentee ballot. It has to be done 7 days before Election Day, which is July 30th. You have to do it by July 30th for this August primary, but that's for us to get the word out is a good idea. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have delayed, but yeah. July 30th, we need to get the word out that all our seniors can request absentee ballots and vote from home safely.
And when you say that, it's over 60, right? 60 and over.
60 and over, for no reason whatsoever, other than that you are a 60 and over. We know 60 is not a senior.
Right.
But
be careful.
Anyone 60 and over, yeah, can request a ballot. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. The media updates that Dr. Haushalter does, are those still 5 days a week, or how many days a week are those on the news?
Tuesday, Thursday now. This is the first week of Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay.
So we did this Tuesday and we'll do tomorrow.
You know, I'm blown away about how many people are watching those updates, and that's free advertising, and so that might just be a good opportunity for you to continue to say that. And quite frankly, I think I could offer up our commissioners to jump in whenever they want to read a statement, and so they see diversity of leadership saying about the opportunity to vote. I think a 3-minute commercial from each one of you saying something about voting is really, really important. And also, I just have to echo, I have to just say personally how disappointing it is. I'm going to pick on me, for example. The current, unless somebody can correct me, the current law doesn't allow me to ask for an absentee ballot. I'm under a senior citizen. I don't meet any of the other qualifications. However, I've got a family member right now who's very, very sick with cancer, and I don't want to expose that person to COVID, and so I'm being extra careful. I don't necessarily feel super comfortable right now going to a polling location because I know how that usually goes. And so there's no way for me to safely vote. You basically have to tell a white lie to be able to vote, and you shouldn't have to do that. So anyway, that's just my soapbox for a second. But again, Mr. Mayor, if we can help you get the word out, we want to.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
finish up.
Please. Oh, please.
So also, there's a request here to set aside $3.3 million for inpatient mental health evaluation and treatment to eliminate the backlog of prisoners waiting to be admitted to go before a trial. There would be 10 beds year-round at a licensed mental health facility plus security. I think Commissioner Whaley touched on that point. I think something like this would be appropriate given mental health issues coupled with the COVID-19 threat in some of our prisons and detention facilities. I know you mentioned WellPath, Mr. Mayor, and we are currently just extending the contract because we voted the extension down last meeting. So I'm thinking because we have this issue and because we are where we are with WellPath, I believe this would be a good hold for funds for our mental health vulnerable inmates. What say you on that? I want to recommend that, and I can put that in the form of a motion.
No, I think we would love to beef up our Office of Mental Health. Director Young Griffin is there if you want to hear some feedback from her. But there's no doubt about it that that office, which supports the activity of the courts and tries to figure out who needs mental health services as they interface with the criminal justice system, we would love to give that office more attention. And the other track, which I've already talked about, is getting with Director Haushalter and talking about our provider, which is WellPath, and how we make sure that mental health services are fully covered in the contract with WellPath or whomever the provider is. So we're fully supportive, and I don't know if you want to hear from Director Young, but she's back there as well.
That's fine. We don't have to belabor it. And last thing, Mr. Chair, at the last meeting, we were almost at midnight, so I didn't do Maritan for Adult Protective Services, and I didn't capture the YMCA for all the work that they're doing. I don't know if this would be appropriate CARES Act spend, but I'll wait on that and see how our regular budget goes before I come back to this. But this will still be on the floor because we can always reconsider this before you gavel the meeting down. But I'm just putting you on notice on that. So right now, I'll just make the recommendation, Mayor, to set aside $3.3 million for mental health care for inmates. And I'll put that in the form of a motion. And do I also need to include in that motion $1 million for voter awareness for the 2020 elections?
$1 million sounds like a lot to me for public awareness campaign. But I think we're happy to receive that kind of feedback. And a lot of this, I think, will come out as we have more meetings about this, because you'll see a million presentations, I hope, from Director Young Griffin and some of the other leadership, and we'll be meeting regularly with the Consensus Committee.
That's fine. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, I'll just move to amend for 3.3 for mental health inmates, mental health sensitive inmates.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a motion and a second on the floor to amend for, tell me again, Commissioner Turner, 3 point?
For mental health treatment for inmates who have mental health issues.
And what was the total again?
3.3 million.
3.3 million. Is there, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Dr. Hall, the mayor, anybody, any comments? Are you good with that? Commissioner Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sawyer. I'll be right there.
Just really quickly, Commissioner Turner, did we include mental health in our, or maybe CAO or deputy CAO? Did we include that in our inmate health, upcoming inmate health contract? I thought we asked for that in the new one. Is that not
There
included?
was an ask. I don't have that information in front of me, Commissioner, sorry, but I think you are right. I'd have to follow up, and I can get that information to you.
I agree with with Commissioner Turner, but can you state unless it's included in the new contract?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll accept that friendly amendment.
Okay, very good. Let me go to Vice Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm all for the mental health, but this is one-time funding. So if we do something like this, you have to keep in mind if it's something that's going to be ongoing, that means it's going to have to be instituted into the budget. And where we are right now, I don't know if that would be a good idea. I'm all for the support, and to that friendly amendment that Commissioner Sawyer brought forth, I think it needs to be held in that perspective. I do think that we have the power and ability to make that recommendation once it is brought to us, and I'd rather see that dealt with it that way, because I would hate to start something, no more funding for it, and then we can't continue it. So I'd rather see it where it's reoccurring cost already built into ongoing future budgets. Mm-hmm. That's all I had regarding it, Mr. Chairman, because I'm in support of it. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that we can continue it, and it's already built in the budgets.
Yeah, I think that's a good amendment. So the amendments are 3.3. However, if it's in the current well path contract, the 3.3 is not used. And if we don't find reoccurring funding to carry this on out, then we don't use the money, because we don't want to start something that we can't keep it going. So I think those amendments are appropriate. If it's in the contract already, we don't use it. And if we can't find a sustainable source to keep it ongoing, then we don't use it. So I'm fine with that.
Right, but I think this body has the power to recommend or to pass a resolution for that to actually be a part of the inmate health care.
Right.
Because we have to vote on it anyway.
Let me ask you a quick question, just so we're all on the same base here. Commissioner Turner, your amendment, is your recommendation for it to come out of operating or for it to come out of COVID relief dollars?
COVID relief.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, it's to come out of COVID relief with two exceptions. One, if it's already in the well path contract or whatever contract is coming, then we don't use it. And two, according to Vice Chair Jones, if we don't have a sustainable way to keep this going out of our general operating budget, then we don't use it. So right now, I'm getting it out there. I'm getting the issue out there. I'm saying let's do it as an issue with those two exceptions, and I'll accept those friendly amendments, Mr. Chair.
Very good. So we have a motion and a second on the floor on the amendment. I'm going to stay on this path of feedback, and next in the queue is Commissioner Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This goes back to our earlier discussion on the municipalities. I want to start off by thanking my colleagues on the commission. Many of you have been very sensitive to the needs of the municipalities, and I know that's very appreciated. I feel like we've turned the corner in some ways on the amount of unity we have in the county, and that's thanks in large part because of this administration and this body of commissioners that have come together, really starting around the time of our 200th anniversary and what we did at Shelby Farms. I know that really strengthened our sense of unity as a county. And I know the mayors were very thankful that they got to take part in that and that every community was recognized. That sense of unity has continued as we've faced this COVID-19 crisis and as all the Leadership around the county has had an opportunity to take part in these ongoing task force discussions. And so, again, I just want to say a word of thanks for including them in this relief, in these relief funds. I'm receiving a number of calls and texts about it because they are very strapped, just like everybody else right now. The cities and municipalities in Shelby County are very hard hit by the economic fallout resulting from COVID-19. And so their request is, Dr. Hall, I don't know if this is just a question or a suggestion or what, but they said in particular that two areas that might be helpful to get a quicker infusion of cash perhaps is if we could consider an amount for hazard pay, just as we're doing for county employees, or for vacation buyback. And so I guess my question would be is, can we work with the municipalities in an ongoing way rather than a one lump sum? Could they come to us a number of times throughout the coming weeks and months so that they have some quicker access to those funds?
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. I think Mayor Harris articulated that he will be meeting, I think tomorrow, with the mayors, and so I feel certain that we'll be able to discuss some of those concerns and flesh out that, as well as the concern from Commissioner Mills. So sorry, it's got choked there, regarding the actual payment amount, but we will work as best we can with each municipality to see if we can make that happen.
Thank you so much. And I know we're all governed by there are restrictions around the funds as well, so I know you're trying to be very cognizant of that and
Yes,
keep
sir.
us on the straight and narrow.
Yes,
so I
sir.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great questions, Commissioner Wright. Thank you, Dr. Hall. I'm going to recognize the County Attorney, Megan Smith, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Mills. Counselor Smith.
Chairman, thank you. Just to ask a clarifying question, Commissioner Turner, is your amendment, I hear the word amendment, is this an amendment of your formal request for that $3.3 million in funding, just to try to understand?
Well, yeah, I was a bit confused because when Commissioner Sawyer's, when she made her motion, I don't know if it was to amend the current CARES Act spend, or was it to recommend funding? So was that a recommendation, or was that an actual amendment to say we're going to spend this money, or was it a recommendation to y'all?
It was a recommendation to the mayor.
And I think because you all speak as a body, it does make sense for you all to adopt those requests to present to the mayor. And with this resolution, I hear questions about the funding in the municipalities and such. If you adopt this resolution today, those requests can come back potentially in a future amendment.
I got you. So can we amend today?
To be clear, the request that you're making could be brought by the administration in an amending resolution to allocate funding at a future date. Just so that so this resolution gives you a starting point.
But we can amend the resolution today.
You can certainly present requests for amendment to the administration, and that's available.
So so the CARES Act funding can only be spent by the mayor's office, and we can't spend the money via a resolution of the commission?
Simply, yes, the mayor has to approve the appropriation of the money given the federal certifications.
Wow, okay, I didn't know that. So basically, if the mayor if he chooses to do it, it's done, but if he chooses not to do it, we can't do it. That's pretty much how the CARES Act money goes.
The act does require that.
I got you. That's cool.
But the reason I suggested Commissioner Sawyer make a recommendation as a body was because of Counselor Smith's original comments. Do you want to make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Yours is in the form of a recommendation.
Yeah. I'm cool. So
okay. And
that's 3.3 is a recommendation that I want to make.
And it was properly seconded. We're still discussing Commissioner Turner's recommendation like we did for Commissioner Sawyer.
Really good questions, Commissioner Wright, and thank you, Counselor Smith. We're still on item number 4. We're on the Turner amendment that's been properly seconded. I'm now going to go to Commissioner Amber Mills.
Thank you, Chairman Billingsley. And I guess I wanted to hit on that. So we're about to pass a resolution, but we cannot amend it. Only recommend, which is new.
There is a resolution before you for formal action today, and any changes to that would have to be a request to the administration. And the administration could bring back an amendment.
Okay, so we can't amend the resolution today, is what you're saying?
That would require additional action by the administration.
Such as?
An adoption of a request.
Okay. Is there any way today that we could put it in to give the municipalities the option to take their money up front and they're on the hook for it if it's not spent?
My concern, and that's the option, you can certainly put that and adopt that in a request to the administration, and the administration would have to act thereafter. My concern is that the potential audit requirements and a paper trail, I would have concern for you as my client if we did do that, but that's all that I can express on that particular subject.
Okay, well, I want to thank Commissioner Ford for bringing the resolution to even include the municipalities to receive some of this funding. To piggyback what Commissioner Wright said, I just know they're really strapped, as everyone is, but thank you.
Commissioner Mills, really good questions. The mayor would like to be recognized. Mayor Lee Harris.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say we're going to talk to municipalities and see if there's a way to do the upfront plus the clawback if the money's spent for inappropriate purposes. So we will talk to Attorney Iverson has been working on that process, and we will see if we can come up with a solution to give the money up front with a clawback if it's spent for inappropriate purposes.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Vice Chairman Jones has a mulligan.
Yeah, I guess I want to follow up on Commissioner Mills' question. So, can you explain what the legislative rules and guidelines are for this? Here's what I know. This body is the appropriator of all county funds. So now you're telling me these particular funds, we can't appropriate them? And I'm assuming whatever we do today, we'll be appropriating these funds. And so technically, really, there would be no need for it to come back before us because we vote on this today. Are we appropriating these funds?
Let me interrupt for just 1 second before you answer, Counselor. I asked, again, no disrespect to Megan Smith. She's an outstanding attorney that represents the county. But, you know, a couple of years ago, the county commission hired our own internal attorney to represent us, Marcy Ingram. She's listening to the meeting. We can ask her any questions. I